Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to what I just recently named Monday Art Talks with Yang Yan Zhao.
Evening, everyone.
Thanks for joining. So I like to name things that sound like they're going to happen a lot, but only do them once. It just gives it a little bit of air of credibility. Then whatever
Start getting
happened to
messages.
whatever happened to Monday Art Talks? I didn't say it would be weekly Monday Art Talks, just Art Talks. So tonight we're talking about taste, and we'll let people kind of filter in, but the idea is taste. What is it? Have we lost it? Did we ever even have it? And we could start by defining what taste is. I think a pretty good, like I looked up the dictionary just to make sure I was accurate. Taste is anything I like, basically. So
Nice.
we can use that. All right, let's see who's in chat. Hey, Creative Faye, how's it going? And Reverend Saber, how's it going? He just got another couple of Horace H. Hoover issues.
Nice.
Yeah, let me know how those are. So how are you doing? How's your channel? How's everything going?
I don't know. I'm on the YouTube naughty list or something.
Really?
Yeah. Like from January until last week, I had exactly 0 new subscribers. People would subscribe, like I'd see them during streams and stuff, and they'd be like, I'm subscribing. And then the next day, the subscriber count would fall back down to the same amount. And then I was dual streaming with somebody else last Friday night, and he's like, hey, everybody go to, my channel and subscribe. And like 6 people did. And then the next day, 2 were gone already. So like, how does that happen?
Yeah, that's a little weird. Like the names, was it like test account followed you? Or like
I wish I'd take that as so I don't know. I sort of don't care.
Yeah, you're around the 900, 1,000 mark, right?
Just over 900, yeah.
Yeah, and that's happened to me like countless times. Like there's this weird like space around 900 where YouTube really tries to kind of cap you at that, or
Yep.
make you work really hard, like pull out a clown suit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's because 1,000 used to be the cutoff for monetization, like just if you had 1,000 subs.
Yeah.
But now it isn't that. Now it's 500 subs, but you have to have like 3,000 watch hours.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I'm nowhere close.
That's interesting. I do have a clown suit. Hey, Jackson Zelda 4874. Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate it. Creative Faye, your credibility is already shot for Fabrizio. I saw what you did. It could be any number of things that I've done. Yeah, so taste. Now, in my thumbnail, I wasn't trying to like rage bait or I don't want to call anybody out. So first, let me set the stage here. Talking about taste. So how I see this, and you may or may not agree, is like there is like 80% of art, and we'll throw music, whatever it is in there. We can objectively say yes. The statue of David is better than Banana on Wall, right? The Godfather is better than Spider Woman. Is there a Spider Woman? Miss Marvel or whatever.
Sure.
I don't
Wasn't
even
there
know.
Spider Woman a couple years ago?
Madam Web or
Silk,
something.
That was Silk. Oh, Madam Web. That's it.
So, but there is like that 20% of just purely subjective taste. And there's really no like standard of measurement that we can use and say you're just wrong for liking that or this or that. So my goal isn't to be like that. That's another topic. But my goal isn't to like if you like something I don't like and get enjoyment out of it, I don't have a problem with that, and I won't even make fun of you, because there's a lot of things that I like, and sometimes I'm like I have no idea why I like that. So I was digging through a box of comic books I got, and these weren't mine, so these were gifted to me. And they were late 80s, mostly 90s comic books, where I had checked out a lot of this stuff. I checked out of a lot of this stuff. And obviously it's the 90s, it's image, it's the style du jour, and man, I'm going through every title, and it is just, it obviously, it infected everything. I mean, it was like a meteor with like gravitational pull. No matter what the title, or it just sucked up everything. And I was thinking about that because and you may again disagree with me, is I see a new trend on the horizon for artists, and I'm like, oh no, we're about to hit another big trend, and all of these artists are going to start copying poorly, sometimes better, sometimes poorly, this style. And we've all found ourselves on the other end of a trend. Sure. Like, whatever it is, I like this sort of music. I love grunge, and all of a sudden pop punk comes out. I love 80s synth wave, and all of a sudden metal or whatever. So we always everybody finds themselves at some point in time on the other end of a trend. So I just want to kind of talk about taste. What do we think it is? And I'm serious about it. Did we ever have it? Or has it always been nostalgia? Has it been just again, that gravitational pull of culture at any given time? And I will end with what I'm seeing is sort of the Daniel Warren Johnson style of artwork. Like, to some degree, very difficult to discern what's going on, like the motion lines. It's a really distinct style. And I've seen, like, over in the past couple of weeks, artists that are not him. I'm like, oh, that's a Daniel Warren Johnson. I'm like, no, it's not. Those lines are popping in. So I'm starting to see it with Absolute Batman. And I just kind of want to chat about this. I figured it'd be a good topic.
Well, I think before we get into taste per se, we need to talk about style. So I would say that style is what happens when one person or a small group of people start doing things in a very similar way, which sometimes can be out of necessity, sometimes can be like a created image, like all the glam rock bands in the 80s. Like, you can't tell me anybody wanted to dress like that. And then that style becomes popular. And then that becomes sort of the benchmark or the code by which all of other art sort of gets judged, at least for a time. So that's style. Now, I think taste, since the age of, what would you call it? Big information. So once printing, and then radio, and then especially after TV got popular, there's always been some people in control of putting these kind of images out. And there's a very strange relationship between the general populace and the people with the money to get these, like, if we're talking about comics, like, there are only so many publishers who have the money to A, publish in large enough volumes, and B, advertise, right? So over the years, you ended up with different style. Now, some of it is like, Jack Kirby in Kirby style became popular because people really liked his books. And then the industry said, okay, we have to start imitating him, and later on we get the various Marvel and DC house styles, which are very similar. Then later again to image, okay, now everybody has to look like Jim Lee. So there's that. But taste, yeah, go ahead.
You're right, but people. So even if we have companies, publishers, or art directors, sort of initializing that style into sort of production,
sure.
Inarguably, it's the people behind the books that keep it going and like make it explode.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm thinking about the taste thing. It's like, do we have taste? Like, or is it just there's so much of, I don't, like you said, glam metal or whatever, pop punk. It permeates the culture so much that it's like, I'll give you a perfect example. I used to really hate the Violent Femmes.
Hmm.
And then my friend loved the Violent Femmes. And we drove around in his car for endless hours listening to the Violent Femmes. And by the end, I liked the Violent Femmes. And is it a lot of that?
I think some of it is. So I think taste, what people like. Some people will just like whatever they're fed, and especially if it hooks onto some emotion. So, like, most people's musical tastes are set when they're in high school, because, or at least until recently. I don't know what exactly is going on with like Gen Alpha and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But like when we're old, so you would drive around in cars. MTV was big. You probably had a radio in your room, and we listened to music. And the stuff that was on the radio is what you liked.
Yeah. And so there is another aspect of that. So there's
Hmm.
taste. There's taste of like the big trends. So we'll say
Yep.
McFarlane Image, that style. But there's also like this counter taste. So it's
Yep.
always like whatever's super popular, I'm purposefully not gonna like or buy. I'm gonna be the counterculture person listening to super underground stuff
Hmm.
or indie
Hmm.
stuff. So it just makes me wonder if there really is a thing as actual taste. Now, some caveats in that. I think if you're an artist or a producer of some sort of creative thing, it's different
Yes.
because like we're constantly making these rules for ourselves because it's like I can't do a drawing unless in my head I have a clear-cut idea of what a good drawing is and what a bad drawing is. And that's why I think a lot of artists and whoever they're very opinionated because you have to be if you're going to like actually produce something.
Right.
So there's like the consumer versus producer kind of aspect of it, but there's also the consumer, like you said, that just likes whatever is popular because it's popular and
Yes.
because it's sort of circulating.
Yeah, and that's the average person. But I do think that there are other smaller groups who end up becoming the taste makers. And they're often looking for something unique, or they have like some predilection to something, and they're looking for something that's like that. So, for example, um, sorry, trying to think of something, like, let's say music. Um, Grunge had sort of been around since the mid '80s, but it didn't get popular nationally until
Hmm.
Nirvana. But you had people on college radio stations, and there were a lot of DJs who they were playing, Husker Du and other uh, and other grunge type bands or proto grunge, and they were promoting these kind of things, right? So there were already people who were interested in it, who, the music and perhaps the lifestyle of the artist appealed to, and they would push it. So for those people, um, if you're really interested in a topic, there's something that, like, I don't know, a natural endorphin producer or something just hits your sweet spot,
Yeah.
and that's the taste for those people.
So yes, let's check with chat, but that's a good point. Hey bootlegger, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. I'll make fun of you, don't worry. My taste is always impeccable. I mean, my taste, yeah, we all consider our taste to be the gold standard. I mean, this is why Friday nights in a married household is 40 minutes of trying to find a movie,
Yeah.
and 30 minutes of watching it because we all have this taste. So when it comes to comic books,
Mhm.
again, I see this shift coming, and it's like part of me is like, oh, how many years of this are we going to be sort of exposed to? Where if you don't if you don't adhere or mimic a certain style, you're just going to get like shoved. Ah, that's old man art. That's
Yep.
that's old timey. And admittedly, my stuff looks old timey. Like I make no bones about it. Um, and the one thing you see in comics that you see virtually everywhere else is styles don't come around again. It seems like we keep like there's no Buscema era again. There's no.
Yet.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we haven't seen. There's not another Kirby era, Ramita era.
I kind of disagree.
Okay.
Because you can see guys like Mark Silvestri back in the 80s was directly aping Frazetta's work. And there were other people. Oh my God, he just died last year and I can't think of his name now. Butch Geist. He had a lot of influences from guys who were doing stuff in the 30s. So when, it could just be that some of this stuff is so old that people have forgotten, except for those artists who are, the tastemakers. They're looking for that thing that hits that tingles their medulla and
Yeah.
and then they sort of bring it in sort of in a new flavor as well. So it could be that, and Jim Lee is still working.
Yeah.
He's still doing his stuff. The Image stuff was clearly in excess. But I think part of the problem is the younger generations now are not exposed to the older books.
Yeah.
They just have no interest in writing it. And, with Daryl Warren Johnson, part of the problem is these big companies want to play tastemaker and they select a style and they say, this is the in style.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if his books sell really well or not, but that's what they're going to push out. And they want people who look like him. And that's sort of going to become the new house style for a while. But, maybe in another 10 years, when Jim Lee is sort of on his last legs, you might see a revival. I don't know if we'll ever get quite to the excesses of the Image era, but something more like that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't know if we'll get like the meteoric sort of big trends. Is everybody going to start aping Jim Lee or Silvestri? I don't think they can. I think people can ape Daniel Warren Johnson because, no offense to any fans, it's not, we'll say, academically and technically very difficult. It's just pure sort of style, So there's not a lot of technical skill to it. I will say one thing you mentioned. You said that people are looking for something that reminds them of something else. Mm-hmm. And one thing I noticed, and this just hit me, and I could just be a complete and utter idiot because I don't really watch animation. I've never gotten into like manga or even just regular American animation. Not any more than like Thundercats or I saw Akira, in manga or in Ninja Scroll. But anyway, the one thing as I'm going through this box of Image stuff is outside of the influence of like Eric Larson and those guys is immediately I'm like, this is like a delineation of animation influence. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like there's pre-animation and then there's post-animation influence of comic books. And I feel like that's a pretty big dividing line. And so when people say they like Eric Larson, I'm like, that doesn't even make sense in my head. It's because it's so very, but yeah, it comes from, I think, animation. So people that grew up on the X-Men or maybe that, it feels much more in that style. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so, people who are searching for something, I think for a lot of people, cartoons are their first exposure. It used to be comics before cartoons, but now it's cartoons first. And there's something in your brain that gets set, like a box that gets ticked and says, this is correct, or this is the way it should be. And this is why people who are the tastemakers, who tend to be the artists, that's why they can do something new because they have enough knowledge and are introspective enough to untick that box, and tick it for something else.
Yeah, it's almost like you get imprinted by something. Yep. So that brings me back to, do we have taste, or is it just a thing that is like fed to us, and then for the rest of our lives we just kind of buy into it without ever really knowing why or what, until another tastemaker, like you said, tries something new, and we like it because it's popular and it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think that is part of it. And then there's an issue of quality, where some things are good quality and bad quality. And I think if you are an artist, you can look up something objectively and be like, well, the perspective is wrong here, the foreshortening is wrong, and you can put into words what is wrong with the art. Whereas the average person doesn't have that sort of academic knowledge of the subject, but they can still intuit
Yeah.
something's not right. And which to me is one of the reasons why manga is eating comics lunch, because they're mainstream comics, at least in North America, are putting out like such terrible, terrible art that looks more like, family circle comic strips than what you and I would have considered a comic book back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think that people, younger kids and stuff, like on an innate level, maybe when you're 5 you don't notice, but if you're like 12, 13, and you've got like X-Men where it's all like pastels, and there's no inking, like it's all just outlines, and it sort of looks like a coloring book.
Yeah.
And then you pick up like some of the great manga books that you're going to find in a bookstore. Like, it's obvious, like, yeah, of course they're going to go manga.
Yeah. I think about, so whenever McFarlane first hit, I could probably get my dates
Hmm.
wrong on this, but I was probably 11-ish, something like that,
Hmm.
12 tops, 12.
Yeah.
And I remember I was fascinated because it was so different. It was
Yeah.
shockingly different, to get that first Spider-Man. And even then, though, I knew that this is exciting, it's new, it's interesting. Wow, his faces look funny. Even
Hmm.
though I knew it, I didn't know why. I knew it looked off, but it still had that special sauce
Yeah.
that I'm like, you know what? It's exciting enough for me to get into it. Let me check the chat here. Aaron Lopresti is inspired by Frazetta and Bernie Wrightson. Yeah,
Sure. And look at the age of Aaron Lopresti too.
yeah, yeah. Like, I'm a John Buscema freak and a
Yeah.
Silvestri freak. Like, there's these just like Mount Rushmore of old guys,
Yeah.
and I'm just as old. Bootlegger. Personally, I gravitate towards European comic art styles,
Sure.
and that's the styles I want in my books.
You
Yeah,
know,
I love some European stuff.
Yeah, because usually the stuff that is put out in Europe, and not always, just the quality is so much better. They put in a lot of work on details, a lot of it's motion. You could see that these guys know what to do with either a brush and ink or a dip pen and ink. Whereas, like, I see the American stuff, and it's like,
Yeah,
Tumblr art.
when I was when I was real young, some of my first comics were European comics, and they were black and white, but they were, I don't want to invoke the greats, but they were as good as anything like in American comics, like Eisner level
Yeah.
inking stuff. But yeah, right. Like, and that the point isn't just like crap on modern comics, but just kind of like,
But it's a good contrast.
yeah, it is. It's totally different. Like you said, it's coloring book. There's no weight to the forms, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But then again, I'm putting on my artist hat, and it's like composition's wrong, perspective's wrong, brr, 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 it might not. Hey, my exposure was cartoons. A Chick Tracks, the comic book. I don't know that.
I don't know what Chick Tracks is.
Hey, Brian Baugh from Wolf and Batsy. I think the reason American comic art sucks now is because the pay rates have dropped to a level that would be considered insulting to any professional artist. I completely agree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. They did this to themselves many times over, and if you can't get competent artists, or it's at least not a step on a path to something good,
Yeah.
um, what are you going to do? The other problem is after the whole image debacle, instead of saying like, hey, maybe we can incentivize these guys to stay, or maybe we'll create our own creator-owned imprint. So like you work your way through the Marvel system, and then we get you like on a whatever would be the Vertigo equivalent or something. So you still keep those guys in house. You're treating them better if they hit the high levels. But they said no, we're gonna take people off of books after a year. We're not gonna let them get too popular.
Yeah.
Like, well, you know,
Yeah, it seems like modern comics is an all or nothing, essentially. You have a couple of artists, like the really really big ones, and they make really good money, and then 99% of everybody else in mainstream comics
yeah.
and on down is not making anything that they can make a living from.
And sort of just getting back to the taste issue for a second. So in my opinion, like the taste is something that gets you in the feels, something that innately you're drawn to. So with modern comics, I mean, we can see that the numbers have dwindled for sales numbers, but there are some people who like this current style. And my question would be like, well, what about this rings true to them, or what about it? Like excites them, tickles the brain, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a subject thing. Like these are people like in various minority groups that are now in the comics, and therefore whatever the art looks like, they see that.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Whenever I got Daredevil, I don't know, 255, whatever, Typhoid Mary, you read the story, and great story, and then you just flip through the art countless times just to look at the art. But maybe you're right. Maybe they just read it, and it's for that shout out, that sort of that subject matter they're looking for, and they don't even. The art is just in total service of whatever secondary thing they're looking for.
I think so. And then I think, but because they're seeing that kind of art constantly, that imprints on them, and that ticks that this is correct box.
Like Pavlov's blue-haired dog.
Yeah, I actually had somebody a couple of years ago on Twitter trying to argue with me that it was during the X-Men Krakoa era, that whoever was doing the artwork was better than like a Mark Silvestri issue, like one of his great issues that I had posted up. And it's like, in what way is this better? Is it better colors? Is it better perspective? Is it better anatomy? And they're like, oh, this is better. So
that's pure
assuming that there was some truth that this person really preferred it. The question is, what about that makes it better for him or for people who like it?
Totally. That 15% is purely arbitrary preference. I just got the Will Eisner book on sequential. That was technically, I think, my first art book that I ever found on comics. Absolutely invaluable. Christian comics that are intense. Interesting.
Oh. I had a bunch of. It was very funny. I'm Catholic. My father's side of the family is Catholic, but my mom's side of the family is, like, now you would probably call them evangelical, but they just said Christian. And like occasionally some of my cousins would give me like religious comic books. And at the time I didn't realize it, but then there'd be stuff like Protestant, like some of it was like history, and was like Protestants beating up Catholics who they said worship Mary and stuff like that.
Really?
And I wonder if I still have them.
That's fascinating.
But as I recall, it looked kind of like Marvel's 80s house style. So I always wondered if they knew what they were doing, or
that's interesting. I mean, I get it. I believe it. You'd think they go after a better target than that, but I don't know. I don't think I've ever read a sort of Christian or religious or any comic that I think tried to deliver some sort of message, at least explicitly, like to that level. Surely,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to make Bible story comic books. I think that's fine. Once you get into but I mean, it's kind of like movies. How many religious movies suck?
Yeah.
Like just really suck. Especially like the earlier in Hollywood's histories, like Ten Commandments is a great movie. I watch that every year if I can. Ben-Hur and stuff. But then more recent, like it's like I don't want to go see a sermon.
Yeah, I mean, The Passion by Mel Gibson is by every metric.
Yes.
It's just a beautiful film. Like, irrespective of content, it's a masterpiece.
And taste, right? So, and what did The Passion have that a lot of other religious movies don't have? It had excellent cinematography. The script was fantastic. If you look at negatives, like it was in Aramaic and Latin mostly. But people got, Americans are famous for not liking to read subtitles, but
Right.
but they were fine because everything else was like it wasn't preaching at you, right? It got you into the story. You were following the last days of Jesus until the crucifixion, and then it's not like any of his disciples ever stopped and turned to the camera. Oh, we are all sinners, and thank you, O Lord, for your. No, it wasn't like that. Boom, he knew what to do. So taste, instinctively, people really liked it, and in ways that they don't like a lot of the other more modern religious films. So there is something innate that people like, and if you can find it. So like I say, grunge was sort of like that. Like grunge never should have worked. Not Hollywood, but the record industries didn't want it to work at the beginning. It's just it got so popular underground that then they had to co-opt it.
Yeah, you gotta get on that train. I mean, I liked a lot of grunge, but even with grunge, it's like, okay, let's take Nirvana versus Soundgarden. Objectively speaking, Soundgarden's incredible compared to Nirvana. Lyrics, music, like by every objective measurement, but yet Nirvana was 100 times bigger than Soundgarden, probably.
Sure. But one of the things we forget is how many really good bands were there? There were maybe like 5 super bands, and you had maybe like 10 more B tier, and then there was so much trash that nobody ever remembers.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's it, guys. That's taste.
No, but I mean,
yeah. No comment. I mean, he no comment on that one. I don't want to. People like what they like, and that's cool. It's just not. It's not my style, especially for Transformers. I'm a big Transformers fan, really big Transformers fan. And they're robots, and they should be drawn at least a certain way. I'll give you a little bit of leeway on that. Sent you one of the covers. I'm interesting. Hey, Crenshaw, how's it going? You remember what? Everything, right? Because you're as old as we are, so we can talk about Barney Fife. It doesn't make a difference.
And then I think one thing that's kind of this is sort of a societal issue now, is because everything is in the now. Taste is becoming more and more diffused, whereas style is becoming a lot harder. Like, what's the difference in style of clothes or hair from 2026 to like 2015 or 2010 even? Not much, So I think part of it now is that with taste, because everything is available to you, and there's no big societal, like we were looking at comics and we were talking about late 80s, X-Men, right? Maybe Punisher, finishing up Transformers and G.I. Joe. If you go earlier, it would have been like Superman, Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man was big in the 90s, but that sort of thing, you don't have that anymore. It's so fractured.
There's no overlap, whether it's movies or TV shows. There just is no overlap. You can get a room of 5 randomly selected people, and nobody has seen any of the same movies, any of the no music, comics. So it is fractured to the point where it seems, I'm not going to say pointless, but and the reason I bring this up too is so I'm going to be starting another series, and
Mhm.
I'm like, you know what? This is a good time to evaluate my style, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we all have sort of we have north stars
Hmm.
for art or writing or things like that. And so for me, it's John Buscema, it's Silvestri, right? I would say those are probably two of my biggest. But I'm like, you know what? This is a good time to reevaluate. Should I go looser? Should I try something more with more energy, or should not stay? Should I not use a brush? Should I use ink? And it's like, if you change your style, are you how do you change it? Do you look at that giant trend and you try to like hint at it so where it gets enough, at least it gets a little bit of that gravitational pull of the giant trend, or are you just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do my own thing. I'm old man art until the day I die, and that's just me. I'm old man art.
Well, I mean that's a good question because if you think about this, if we were talking about this 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you would be on a book making halfway decent money, and you'd be pumping out at least 12 issues a year. And so in 2 or 3 years, you would really have solidified what style works for you. Whereas, you can't pump that stuff out like that.
No.
What would take you 2 or 3 years could now take you 20 years. So it was definitely easier to do, but in 20 years, maybe Fabrizio style, everybody wants to ape Fabrizio. You just don't know.
Let's hope to God that's never the case.
Comics would look a lot better if they did.
Crenshaw, I remember it all. Remember it all, except you've never seen any movies, from what I understand. Every time somebody mentions a movie, Crenshaw's like, I haven't seen it. Hey, Bancroft, how's it going? What's going on?
Hey, man.
Andy, I don't know what that means. And they're in disguise. Yes, I have a love of Transformers that is
Yeah.
it imprinted on me at a young
Yep.
age, and I don't deny it. There's just something about it, whether it's the colors, the design, but man, I love Transformers. So whenever an artist gets in there and does them dirty, I take it a little personally. But Captain Stern, heavy metal. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm not getting any of these references. Am I too
That
old?
the pilot from Heavy Metal.
The great disappearing zeitgeist. Old man art for the win. Yeah, I don't know. It's also is like, is it old man, shakes fists at clouds? Really, it's like you just watch the trends kind of go by, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Oh, did he? Bernie
What's
Brian
that?
says Bernie Wrightson did Captain Stern. Oh,
I didn't know that. I've never seen that. If that's the case.
yeah, I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, as much as I love Bernie Wrightson, as a reference to Barney Fife, yeah, I know I say I'm old. Yeah, like
Well,
Wrightson is always one of those artists where he was too out of my like grasp. So it's
yes.
like I look at him and in awe, but I never. He's just so far outside that I'm like, I can't learn anything. He'll make me want to like break my brush and go away. Brian Baugh, I have a behind the scenes story about that's really cool.
Oh, interesting.
We'll have to hear that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So with taste, I guess we got to wait and see. I think there's going to be a few things, a few trends. It's my prediction in the future.
Okay.
So one is we will see the return of DJs, but not necessarily just for music. You are going to have, because if you think about how radio DJs used to be, right? You could listen to a show that was at 8 to 10 and then another one from 10 to midnight, and they would both be very different within the same genre, but those DJs got to pick what they thought were great music. It's not like now where everything is corporately controlled. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the way that we're going to go back to, where people are going to point out like, hey, this is a great comic, read this series, I love this artist, and they'll give insights to it too, like this person studied, his influences are this
Yeah.
and that, and you'll get the background that makes it more interesting to you. And I think we'll see that in comics. I think we'll see it in movies, if good movies come out again. And music, I think, is the easiest.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess word of the mouth is definitely the best way because our time is so limited. There's so much stuff out there.
Yep.
It's like picking things at random at a comic book shop will just get you a waste of 20 minutes for sure.
Yeah, and that's part of the modern problem that didn't exist back in the day, is now there is just too much information. It's like the Stanley Spadowski drinking from the fire hose from UHF way of trying to get information.
Yeah.
You need someone to help point out like, hey, this is really cool, that's really cool.
Yeah, I almost considered, for my covers to actually have a character with a giant vacuum on his head to like lure people in. I'm like, what can I possibly do? I decided against it in the end, and it didn't seem to work out. But yeah, kidding aside, that is why I did the colors that I did. I mean, you were talking about colors before in modern comics, and they kind of all blend together, and they're all fuzzy. I'm like, if I ever get a chance to have a comic book on a wall, I'm going to use the most garish, extreme colors that I could find, where somebody could see it across the room.
Well, but I mean, the thing is, when those comics, when from the Golden Age on, when those comics were originally published, they had very limited colors just due to technology. However, just because you have like a 500 crayon box doesn't mean you need to use all those colors, and knowing how to use them well. I think, and this is part of the problem with taste and skill, where the taste makers, i.e. modern comic artists, and not all of them certainly, a lot of them just haven't really studied much. I don't think a lot of them have had a lot of anatomy and physiology classes, perspective classes, certainly not color theory.
Yeah.
And as much, sorry, indie guys, there's a lot of indie comics that are just like, I like the art, and then we'll get updates about the color, and it's like, oh, you talked me out of buying that.
Yeah, for some reason, coloring it's I don't want to say it's harder to find than drawing or inking or whatever, but for me, it's every aspect has to at least be a certain level before I can buy into it. I mean, it's funny. Crenshaw, you're saying we need a comic book Matt Pinfield.
Yes. Where is, we need a comic book 120 minutes. That's what we need. Oh, can't hear you. Okay, there we go.
Are we good?
Clicking now. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what they did. Yeah, we need a Headbangers Ball for comics. That would actually be kind of cool. I mean, I know there's channels that go over comics and stuff like that, and it's very cool when people do that. I don't do it. I don't stream very much. There is also this kind of awkward eggshell thing that people in sort of the indie sphere have to walk, because if you say something, if you don't like this book, that's that can cause problems. Or if you like this book, somebody might. So there is like a weird like dynamic to the community sometimes. It's not as sort of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember, I think it was not Hunt for Red October, Rising Tides, which was a submarine movie back in the 90s. And there was this, it stars Denzel Washington. And there was a scene where he breaks up a fight in a galley. And the fight was two of the crew members, like one guy was arguing that Kirby Silver Surfer was the best. And, the other crew member, I forget who it was.
Alec Baldwin, was he in that?
But, like that kind of made sense. So the community has sort of always been like that. But I think that it's worse now. It's much worse now because if you didn't like Long Shot, I never took that personally. You know what I mean? Like Longshot wasn't me. He was just a character in a comic. I liked him. And if
Dazzler.
you didn't, too bad for you. Yeah, exactly. But now people take it like part of their personality. Like
Well,
if I don't
yeah.
like Wolverine, that means I don't like you.
So, not to go back to Daniel Warren Johnson, but there was an image posted, and I didn't even say I hate you, I want you to die. I didn't say anything like that. I'm like, I don't know, man. There's no form to these structures. It was a very like
Yeah.
critique that I'm used to doing as an art snob. There's no form to the structure. It's hard to read. Blah blah blah. I had hundreds of people like go after me for all manner of reasons other than the artwork for like
Yeah.
days. Because all I said was I'm like, I'm not a big fan. There's really so it is a little, and that's not just art. That's social media in general. But it was very interesting. So like, deign to even critique something at the smallest level, and you might get something back. Bootlegger. I always wanted yellow on my cover so it would be easy to see and pop out.
Yeah.
I
But that's
Yeah. I mean, red and yellow.
that's good if you're selling a physical copy of something. You definitely want that. So a lot of the old tricks still hold up.
They do. Brian Baugh, it has become very trendy on social media to bash going to art school, but that's where you get your intense anatomy classes, color theory, and most important, the discipline to meet deadlines. I know. I went to art school, and I feel like I got a base, like a fundamental. And some people go to art school and they don't get anything, admittedly. Like I went for fine art and drawing. And it's not like I was drawing comic books all day. I didn't. But I had to sit through 4-hour drawing sessions 3 days a week doing anatomy and live drawings and nude models and still lives. It does sort of like drive this thing into your brain on looking. So I don't bash it at all. I think, I'm not saying you have to go to art school. Don't get me wrong. But I'm glad I went to art school. It's something that
I'm going to take the counterpoint.
that's fine.
So I actually used to teach design classes at the university level. I did that for like 10 years. The problem I have is that most art schools are awful. A lot of it's political, and I don't just mean the Democrat Republican type political. What I mean is like there's so much this teacher likes this or likes that. If you like comics, well, guess what? They're going to shit on you.
Yes.
If and then a lot of the courses that they offer, like, yes, those basic courses can be helpful. But there's too much other, like, you got to take a psychology class, you got to take this and that, and there's too much other garbage, and the cost is too much. Well, I do say you do need training. Like, if it were me advising someone, I would say go online. You got guys like Mark Brunette, who does was it Art School Academy or something like that?
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, and he has a program that is structured like a traditional school. So like, in this semester, for this 2 months or 3 months or whatever, you're going to be working on like basic anatomy. You might be working on basic composition. And then next time, you'll be working on like a more upscale form of anatomy. And then maybe we're going to work on perspective. And so he plans it out. I would say that go to your local community college and get in those live figure drawing classes, because that is one thing that is hard to replicate online. You can do it. Like New Masters Academy is another good one.
Yeah.
Froco has a lot of really good art classes, although they don't have like a whole like syllabus.
I don't like that guy, but
this or that. But some of his,
it's good. I'm not a fan of that. But the other stuff you mentioned, even
himself, but
like all the David Finch videos, he has a bunch. I used to go to Gnomenology workshop. They had a bunch of stuff. So yeah, some sort of training, I would say, some formal, structured training. But yeah, with the cost of art school today, I would not I would
Now,
not mention
one
it.
exception might be I had Frankie B. Washington on some years ago, and he was telling me about the school he went to. It was an art school, but it functioned much more like a trade school. Uh, if you can find that, then yeah, that might be worth going into. And I had the guy who was the art director for Wizards of the Coast for their Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the
Oh,
Gathering,
that's cool.
Richard Witters, and he was telling me he's running something like that up in Canada somewhere. But it's like a community college. So like there are to get back to Brian, there are some schools that are very good, and if you can find them, go to them. The problem is the average university's art program sucks.
For sure. I'm not going to disagree with that. Like and not to go too deep into art school, but um, all of my professors were realists. I didn't have any abstract expressionist painters. They were hardcore realists. So, I had somebody that was really good at still lifes and this and anatomy. So for me, it worked out great, and I wouldn't give it up. And I know you said that there's psychology classes and this and that, but man, I really took a lot of classes that I thought were valuable to me. English classes, writing that I ended up using. Again, I'm not trying to sell art school to anybody. If you're here, don't spend $200,000 on art school.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a cost benefit ratio.
Yeah.
And you definitely, if you want to do art professionally, or if you want to do like high end, I don't know, what would you call indie comics making, like semi pro art or something? If you
Yeah.
want to be good, you do need to get trained somewhere.
Yes.
And Brian brings up a good point. He had a few instructors who are good. I did not have that experience, so
Yeah, it's a crapshoot, I
you know
think.
that's the thing. But if you can find that, and even maybe I don't know that Jim Lee would be the right one to go to, but if you find artists you like, especially if they're not super popular, just write them and ask them for advice. And a lot of guys love to talk about this kind of stuff.
For sure. I do have a little story about that. So Jackson Zelda, my favorite comic era is the Bronze Age for sure. I mean, I'm a sucker. I think that is why I drifted away from comics in the '90s, and one of the big reasons H.H. Hoover caught my eye. Yeah, I mean, it's like I kind of picked up where I left off. In my head, I wanted to continue that sort of '80s Bronze Age style. Whether or not other people like it, Brian, I had a few great instructors who were deep into comics. I didn't have any that were in comics. For me, comics was a fight. It was like tattooing comics,
Yep.
illustration even. They were like, get out of here. That is like lowbrow art.
Yep.
So that was
Yeah.
difficult, but I argued all the time with my professors, so I didn't care and encourage. That's great. Yeah, if I had a professor that was into comics, they could have shown me things that were directly applicable to comics instead of me
Yeah.
trying to translate, something over.
That's one thing. Comics has been such a, I mean, I don't know about now, but especially when comics was such an influential medium that every kid read. I don't understand why professors wouldn't use it in the sense, like, I understand if you think it's kind of lowbrow or something, but why wouldn't you use it in the sense of like, okay, here's perspective, here's color,
Yeah.
and like show some examples of this, and then like, okay, we'll take you from this, and then we'll get you to the more advanced stuff. But for some reason, they just all hated it. Like all professors hated Star Wars.
Yeah, it was strange. And even when I tried to like show the best examples of, and I can't remember what I showed. I probably showed like Kent Williams or the artsier, stuff. But that didn't seem to that didn't do anything. Oh, meanwhile, Kent Williams is a fine artist currently, like selling his paintings for a ton and does comics. You have David Mazzucchelli, who's doing snooty comics and teaching. To be fair, I went to art school '90. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
so
it was for sure.
I mean, I went a little later, but I lucked out and got some pretty good ones. Philosophy classes were one of my favorites in history. I loved philosophy, man. History, I was utterly horrible at. I was so I'm not
I
gonna
didn't. I
recommend
didn't like
that.
them at all.
I think you have to hit a certain age usually before you like history.
Oh no, I loved history back then,
Man,
but my classes were terrible. I took like what was it? There was like modern American history, which was from the Civil War after, and then it was like and this was a 10-week course. We spent like 3 weeks on the after effects of slavery. Then we went directly into how the U.S. was bad for bombing Japan, and
yeah.
it's like, fuck, guy, come on! Like, didn't anything else happen?
Yeah.
So
No comment on that. No comment on that.
I yeah.
Yeah. So I think we covered it pretty good. I don't know. We want to talk about anything else? I think we've established my love of Daniel Warren Johnson's art and modern Transformers comics. I'm just kidding. He's fine. I'm sure he hates Rick Leonardi and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Mazzucchelli and all these other guys that I love. So
Yeah, there's I mean, to an extent everything is cyclical. So at images and words together will never die. What form we're getting them in is a slightly different question. I mean, as American comics valiantly march into irrelevancy, we're going to have a lot more Japanese influence. And who knows? Maybe eventually we'll see Japanese companies hiring Americans who are doing weird things to make comics for Japanese that
interesting.
kind of make their way back here. Um, or eventually kids are going to get tired, like, oh, Dragon Ball Triple Z, that's something my grandpa would like, and then they'll have like a Jim Lee clone and they don't know who Jim
Yeah.
Lee was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to I don't want to be pessimistic because, well, I am, I am doing comics. So at a certain point, I'm going to continue doing comics regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask. Okay, last question, and I'll use me as an example. We can use anybody, right? Because do people and I'll ask the chat too. Would you like an iteration of a style from an artist, much like a band? So you have a band, the first album is a little rough, second nails
Yep.
it, third they go into a different direction. It seems like people hate that in general. They
Sure.
kind of want people to. This is Silvestri, and I'm guilty of that because as soon as Silvestri went over to Image, like he was unrecognizable to me, and I
Yep.
don't look at the Image stuff. I just continually look at the Marvel stuff. So I don't know. Do people want iterations of styles, or like, listen, Fabrizio, stick to old man brushes and until your dying breath?
I don't know. That's a good question. There are some people, like, actually, a good someone good to listen to this is Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. If you listen to him in certain interviews, he'll talk about like his frustrations, like that people always want 1993 Siamese Dream, even in 2026.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think to a certain extent, because people emotionally resonate with that time and that place. So you might have people who are like, nah, I really like the Hoover, but that stuff later, meh.
His early
um
stuff is great.
yeah, exactly. But I do think that there are a lot of people who especially would like to grow. Like, I know this is going to sound like a weird analogy, but the Harry Potter books were one of the most successful series, in my opinion, that aged up with the kids.
Yeah.
The subject matter got darker and darker. You eventually start to bring in, like, sexuality and like all sorts of like mental issues and this and that a 10-year-old can't understand, but a 17, 18-year-old could understand. So I do think, especially one thing that's broken with the North American comic industry is that, due to communists and the Comic Book Code Authority, uh, we had a broken chain where comics could age you up to like 13, 14, And then there was nothing for you. It didn't age up past that until maybe the 80s when we start getting Vertigo.
Later, yeah.
Or you had to find like really independent comics, which were often like porn. So, but the Japanese never had that. So they had comics, for every age. So you could go from one
That's a
to the
good
other.
point.
I think that could happen on an artist level. Someone who starts writing like for kids, and then eventually they end up with books for adults. I can see that happening. But the only problem with it is, one is it might have to be in retrospect, whereas like you have to put all this body of work out, and then people will find it.
Right.
Which is not very satisfying financially.
Yeah, and it's hard if you're doing one book a year or something. So the other thing too, and this is, I don't know if anybody's successfully done it, like change styles. Like you have John Romita, right, from beginning to end, extraordinary difference in styles, and everybody would say the middle is his peak for sure. But then you have, and again, this is music in comics. To me, it's all sort of like mixed together. But I was thinking about Prince. I'm a huge Prince fan, and every album of Prince was totally different, but you could tell it was Prince, and there was just something, he just put his stamp on it. I don't know if there's an artist that has really done that. And obviously Frank Miller has evolved as well, and he's been very controversial in his evolution.
Well, I would say Mark Silvestri. Now he's sort of a different case because he kind of dipped out of doing most of the books, but he came back a couple years ago with his Batman.
Yeah. Very different though.
Fantastic. Very different, but good. We just sort of look over that image period.
I think his Batman, what is it? The something duo, the whatever. Anyway, whatever that Batman series was, really good. But he inked it himself. I think if he still had Dan Green inking,
I thought Bats did that.
somebody in chat, correct me if I'm wrong. I could have swore that Mark Silvestri inked his own stuff. Not the Dynamic Duo. It was a twist on that. The Dangerous Duo. Anyway, let me look at chat here, and then we'll probably head out here. Cheap Viewers Streambo. Ooh,
Nice. Excellent.
just finished HH3. Oh, Revan. Dude, that's my articulate review. Thank you. Yeah, so 4 ends the arc. 4 is like that's the biggie. So let me know what you think about that. But thanks for checking these out. I have an 8-year-old. Today's really successful popular comics with kids are Dogman and Cat Kid. Yeah. Creative Faye, do what you need to do, Fabrizio. Express yourself. I do. I close the shades, but I do. I read all of Cerebus, which had several phases because it's about a character's life. That's
Cerebus.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's a good example of that happening.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's a good example of a book that people should check out for that happening. Like at some point, you're reading it and it's like, Dave Sim, shouldn't you draw some pictures instead of just like walls of text?
Crenshaw, it depends. Frank Miller switched up styles to fit stories and slowly grew into his modern style, perhaps a different style for a different genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his Ronin stuff, totally different than his other stuff. So you could still tell it was Frank Miller though, like underneath it.
Yeah.
Dave Sim went from Cerebus to Glamourpuss and now to The Strange Death. I haven't read that.
I haven't either.
The Strange Death, Alex Raymond. I love the walls of text. Some people complain about text. This is a random note. I'm okay with text. Like, people probably can tell this in H.H. Hoover, but I read novels. So to me, if I sit down with a comic book, it's less text. It's always going to be less text than I would be reading in a novel. So as long as it's not dumb text, I'm totally cool with it.
See, I'm okay with like a lot of text in a comic book format, but like there were issues of Cerebus that I know I used to have where he would literally just take like 2 pages and it's all just like type words. There's like no and it's like, Dave.
Well,
Dave, come on.
Yeah, that's a little different. Brian Baugh, I think Frank Miller only switched up his choice of substance abuse. Yeah, and I know he got
Mm,
sick. I think he was ill, so I give him a lot of. Again, he's. I think when the
yeah,
dust settles, he's going to be one of the like absolute
he
icons of comics.
he will, but unfortunately, it's what happens to a lot of people when they get older. Like they're just not at their peak anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
I saw some new cover. I can't even remember what book it was, but it was like somebody was shot and like there was like blood stains everywhere, and it was just like, oh, this is bad.
yeah, his newest stuff. Man, I love Frank Miller though.
I don't know if he's like going Picasso, where Picasso would like try to pay for coffee with like just something you scribble on a napkin. Like I don't know if
Yeah,
he's just cashing in on the name, or if he thinks it's good, or because he got sick, like he's just not able to draw like he used to, or maybe he's trying to draw in the style of modern artists. Maybe the companies say to him, "Hey, make it look more like this guy."
yeah. I mean, to be completely honest, if you take the modern Frank Miller and compare him to like a David Heron or a lot of that very exaggerated stuff, it's not the same, but there's definitely some similarities.
Yeah,
Anyway, I love Frank Miller, so I'm not gonna talk poorly of the man.
is old school.
Uh, well, thanks everybody. This was fun. I appreciate everybody in chat for popping in. Yang Yan Chao, what are you up to on your channel and your any campaigns? I'll throw some links in the info.
I am slow rolling it. I am still burning the midnight oil to get Empire of the Undying Sun out. If you are a fan of tabletop role playing games and you're looking for a setting for advanced Dungeons and Dragons because you're old like me, or if you want the newest fifth edition, we've got editions of Empire for both. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, you're ready to publish later this summer. And other than that, occasionally having guests on and occasionally doing live streams for art for Empire of the Undying Sun. Haven't had time
Yeah,
in the last few weeks, but I definitely plan on getting back to that.
yeah, and you. I like your channel because you cover not just D&D, you do comics, you do literature, and it's been fun. I am on the tubes, and occasionally I stream, as you'll notice. Whether or not Monday art talk becomes a thing, I guess we'll see. But thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And I will check you later. If you are interested in Horace H. Hoover, go to horacehoover.com. My store is up, and you can purchase all the books, digital, print, etc., etc. Currently working on issue 5. Hope to get that out the rest of this at the end of this year. Promoing a new book, new series for next year, hopefully later on. So thanks again, everybody, and have a good night.
Good night.